So, hello. I'm seeking a new plan for this channel now that it is just me. Apologies for the radio silence. Grief is complicated and so is confusion. Simon and I started this channel in 2023 to give our passion for books and natural history in particular a focus. Although it is arguable that our individual approaches would soon have needed two channels given how different they were. Simon's insightful woodland videos had started to get a following that my inputs couldn't match, and I lost confidence at the same time as his health deteriorated sharply and I spent the time caring for him. The passion for books and natural history will remain, underpinning what I end up by doing. I have a great deal of knowledge gleaned from 40 years with the purveyor of enthusiasm, but it has always been a bit too easy to rely on his depth and variety to stand on my own of the natural history. Hey-ho. In 2025, my videos should be much easier to do, as I will be able to talk freely about the churches of the South Downs National Park as they sit in their landscape when I finally get into print and ready for launch. Now I'm going to get to the point. In this video, I'm addressing a summarised version of 7 key stages in the process of getting a book into print. I did a little talk on this at West Sussex Writers a few years ago, and my single subject notes filled an entire page, just to emphasise that this is a summary. The 7 stages of writing and selling a book. Are you thinking of or yearning to get around to writing a book? If you've already published a book, congratulations. It's less easy to do for some than others, and all books should be cherished. In 2015, I was involved in the publication of 2 books, one self-published and one published through a small publisher. Since then, I have self-published 3 more, 5 soonish, books and illustrated 2 others published by another small publisher. There are many people who express a hope that they can have a book in their name one day. These tips are for anyone who has this yearning feeling. It is a fun journey with a lot of potholes to navigate, but ultimately it is a wonderful feeling to have your name on a spine. Number 1. Subject matter for the book. It is a popular saying that everyone has a book in them, which is true even of dogs and cats nowadays with press button technology. Choosing what you want to say gets embedded in many emotional hiccups. Some guidance is to speak about what you know. Some is to delve deep into things you don't know, as then you can dig and explore without jargon you've forgotten you once didn't know affecting your words. But it is horses for courses. Should it be fact or fiction? Are you writing to promote your business, to have a bit of fun, or to make a business for yourself? The latter is a tough call, so the motives need to be strong to get you off the ground. J.K. Rowling famously had 29 often searing rejections for her first Harry Potter work. The first 2 reasons are less troublesome in some ways. Certainly they hold less pressure to perform, but may not be what deep down you yearn to do. Again, the guidance is conflicting. Obviously, writing for a known audience is going to make selling the book easier, but sometimes the very reason for writing a book is the burning urge to write it, and that can mean there is no obviously defined audience. Basically, my advice, at least in the beginning, is to go into it with love for the concept and awareness that things may change along the way as you learn the ropes. Number 2. Writing your book. This requires discipline and courage. If you tend to put things off, don't be afraid. Virtually all authors are the same, I've learned after much agonizing. Should I use a pen or the keyboard? That choice can affect how comfortable you are in making a start. Having a plan helps many writers, but sometimes stream of consciousness can be liberating. Some writers write, edit, and tweak as they go. Personally, I think that impedes flow, but with anything creative it has to be what works for you. There are guiding principles, but they are not rules, because the writing process, that reason you have started in the first place, is something unique to each writer. For me, I immerse myself in my subject matter, splurge once I think I've understood it, push it to one side for a few months if the timing allows, and come back with clear eyes and weave back into my hopefully fluid prose the facts that I may have forgotten or got wrong first time around. But some writers have the jaw-dropping ability to just write one draft and that's it. I do usually pity their editors. I also know of poets who nibble at their poems for months, making them more like a chipped stone sculpture than the romantic image of the tortured soul wringing their heart on a scrap of paper in one go, quill in one hand and absinthe in the other. Number 3. Crunch time, sorting out how to publish your book. This is a thorny issue, as finding a publisher is what we think we want to do, but as the years go by it becomes more and more difficult to achieve, as the number of publishers able to do the traditional route shrink before our eyes. In the past 15 years, the rise of self-publishing and the different methods that it is possible to use to produce books for yourself and potentially make better money on each copy has made publishing a totally different ballgame. There are, of course, many more things to learn, but crucially, it involves gaining experience of selling and marketing. Traditional big-name publishers are focused strongly on celebrity or shock-level writers, and now rarely do advances. They will often take on a low option, but intelligent book simply to give their lists credibility. They will do nothing to promote many books as a result. This nugget was admitted to at a publishing event that I attended in 2014 by a mainstream publisher. There are many different avenues that can be taken. Print on demand is very trendy, for example, particularly as it reduces the need to carry stock, as are ebooks, but there are more options available than at first appear on a quick Google search. Researching the options and asking around is crucial. Number 4. Editing your book. Whatever route to publication you opt for, editing is important. Editors come in 2 forms if you outsource, once you've done all that you can do yourself. 1. What we tend to think of in an editor are the proofreaders and fact-checkers, sometimes responded to as pedants. Actually, a good pedant is brilliant. These editors may also work through your grammar and straighten that out. Look for someone obsessed with apostrophes, the ones who get it right, I mean. 2. The structural editor. This is of particular value with fiction, but can also be something really helpful for non-fiction. A structural editor will look at flow and story construction. Story used loosely here, of course. If there are plot holes, like continuity errors in the movies, then they will ask for those to be resolved or make suggestions depending on how the problem has arisen. If a book is muddled or you've got too close to it, then a structural editor will be a huge asset. But be prepared for it, not always to feel like a comfortable ride. On my bookshelves, I have a book won in a raffle. It's a great tale of daring do, and the imagination of the author and storytelling in it is really grabbing, which presumably explains why he has managed to sell many of his books. Sad to relate, his editing is catastrophic. Chunks of text are repeated. There are enormous gaps where multiple carriage returns have been used instead of page breaks, and no pedant has been near it. There must be about 1,000 typos or more. Reading it is heavy going in spite of his skill as a storyteller. Okay, so I channel Mini Pedant, but the errors are bad, and the fact he is not on Amazon may be because he has had too many brickbats thrown at his editing. Editing is as important as the writing, basically. For example, how do you feel when you find mistakes in books you read? Does it affect how you feel about the author or the publishing team? Number 5. Thoughts on book design. Again, whatever route to publishing is involved, a clean manuscript and any images with a clean legal copyright are crucial. A smart, attractive cover is important, and one that is consistent with its genre. Buyers of indie books are as savvy as those of traditional ones, and this may mean making some compromises on a cover design. Did you even know that you can tell a book's genre by what the cover looks like? Subliminal marketing, it acts as a sort of purchaser filter. We don't know we're being manipulated like this, but sad to relate, we actually are. A good cover designer will be a valuable asset. I don't think this matters so much with non-fiction as it does with fiction. I say this with my fingers crossed, as I tend to design my own covers. But I used to design the covers for company proposals, and they always seemed to get us through to interview stage, by which point it was up to the rest of the team, so I hold on to that as encouragement. It is also worth pointing out that the lettering, the font, in a book is also genre relevant. Screen lettering is usually without the pointy bits, called serifs, to make them easier to read on the screen. Book lettering is more often with the pointy bits, called serifs, as they have a function of leading the eye across the page. The more serious you may want to sound, the more traditional the font you will need to use to be read that way. And the use of Comic Sans as a font is to be kept to a minimum, if ever, as there are as many Comic Sans haters as there are apostrophe pedants. When you place a chair in a room, it is very rare to place it jammed right up against the wall. You need space to breathe and move your shoulders. So does a book need its margins. I saw the other day on screen a book that has teeny tiny margins, and it looked oppressive. This was not assisted by also being about 3 inches thick, so an editor had also been needed to hack the Dergy prose. If you are tempted to cram into the margins in order to cut down page count, you need to cut the word count, basically. Printing is another theme, how much stock to carry and how to get the best cost margins. Number 6, launching your book. Your book is your baby. I speak from experience when I say this is important and needs to be marked with some sort of party to wet its head. As I mentioned, I've been involved to date with 7 books, with more to come. 2 of those books had no launch. They just went live on Amazon one day, which is one of the many reasons why we found working with that publisher uncomfortable. 2 books have had marvellous launches, where over 25 copies of each book were sold, one in the Institution of Civil Engineers Library, which was gorgeous, and one on the island of Jersey in a similarly posh venue. The first was accompanied by tea. The second might have involved a little wine, but launches I have attended have had wine. For one self-published book, I idiotically attempted to piggyback onto another event, providing Elderflower Fizz as it was a children's book, and I can state categorically that your book needs its own party. That one was a disaster, given there were too many distractions. The 6th launch was via a Facebook Live, attended online by friends and watched by others later on. It was a very happy evening, and that is what you want. Happy feelings around your book, as the next phase is a beast. And do you love a party where, in theory, people actually want to talk about your book? It is important to make sure that the invitations go to a rich variety of contacts, including press, folk interested in your genre, and some positive friends and family. Number 7, doing your best to sell your book. One of the huge attractions for authors looking towards the traditional publishers is that you write your book, hand over the script, and then, as if by magic, you are on talk shows and raking in the dosh. But nah. These days, that ain't how it works, not even really for the big money celebrities. Marketing your book as an author is slog. The mantra is that you need to fall in love with marketing. I have to say that is a hard call. It is loads more fun developing a book than it is selling it, especially when surrounded by "buy my book" from everyone else, which I've found as inhibiting as my parents' demands not to show off that were aimed at my brother but affected me. Just remember that there are ways other than "buy my book" that work. You just have to remember to provide information about how it is possible and learn how not to be shy. This is a work in progress for all, even those who seem to be on top of it. I'm still learning and experimenting. This next point is important. Marketing a book isn't actually the thing to leave until last, but it's always the last thing on the list. I've put it here after the launch, as that's where you would expect to find it, possibly. When I saw the not-to-be publisher for my grandfather's autobiography to discuss the thankfully amicable parting of our ways, he very kindly advised that publicity and marketing for a book should start 5 months prior to publication date. This was incredibly valuable advice that I pass on to you, even though I have yet to manage it myself. This means you need copies available for reviews well before the launch. My copies have always turned up about 10 days before the launch, as I was raised as a deadline chaser and haven't found a way to avoid that yet. Many thanks for watching. I'm always really happy to give advice where I can on this journey, so if you have questions, please do ask below or through social media, etc. And if you have a better clue about self-marketing than I do, I would love to hear it. Many thanks.